Sunday night, I'd watch the practice with none of my friends. I'd turn the dial to ABC to see the creep of the week that Bobby Donald defends. But I'm out of practice.
With your host, Keith Varney.
Out of practice.
And I'm Mike and Deglio, baby.
Way back in high school, most every night, my mom watched QVC, so I missed the practice. There was no TiVo, what could I do? Wait 15 years, get fat, then stream it on Hulu. Out of practice.
I was dancing so hard I forgot what to say.
Keith and I started a second show, which in its first month has completely dwarfed what we've attempted to do here for 2 years.
Out of practice.
And welcome to the Out of Practice Podcast, a weekly podcast in which me, Keith Varney, and my old buddy Mike and Deglio discuss David E. Kelley's award-winning series, The Practice. This week we are up to Season 6, Episode 17, Fireproof.
Woo.
It sounds like an exciting episode, and not for nothing, we are in 617, which is also the area code of Boston where the show takes place. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, Keith. It's going well, man. I just got back from the beach, so this isn't OBS saturation you're seeing. This is the golden hues of summer. That's what it is.
Ooh, it's not OBS saturation, ladies. Mom.
Yeah, it was great. I was in Wildwood, New Jersey this past Thursday to sing
Wow.
Schmerzy Boys version C, which went pretty well. My mom hasn't seen me do it in a while, or ever, really. So this was the first time I'd ever rehearsed with these guys, sang with these guys, so it could have gone a lot worse. Didn't go great, but it could have gone a lot worse.
Ringing endorsement.
But, Keith, there was some paparazzi footage.
There was! Oh, I'm so excited.
So I decided, since it's not too embarrassing,
Yes.
I thought I'd go ahead and share some of it. So here is
So
a
excited.
bit of a tune that I didn't screw up.
Not too embarrassed, didn't screw up.
I can see there ain't no room for me. You're only holding out your heart and sympathy. If there's another man, then girl, I understand. Go on and take his hand. And don't you worry about me. I'll be blue and I'll be crying too. But girl, you know I only want what's best for you. What good is all my pride if our true love has died? Go on and be his bride. And don't you worry about me. I'll be strong. I'll try to carry on. Although you know it won't be easy when you're gone. I'll always think of you, that tender love you knew. But somehow I'll be through. So don't you worry about me, you, baby.
All right.
Yeah. Let me give you some applause. Oh, wait.
Or dramatic underscoring.
That's it. It might be the wrong button. Hold on. I have it here. Oh, come on. There it is.
That tracks. That
Hey.
tracks. Actually,
Sounds great.
The fallout from the actual singing of the show probably requires the dramatic music, but that's a conversation we had offline.
Yes, indeed. But that's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Mom got to see it, and it went good. And yeah, I don't know what my hair is doing today, but how you doing, man? What's been going on?
Oh, boy. Well, it's sort of a cross promotion here on KME Entertainment, but we do this other show about Star Trek action figures, about this old line from the 90s, and just as we started, they just announced that the original company that made these action figures just re-got the license. So I'm scrambling to prepare for a video, here's a wish list. Here's the figures that I want you to fill out the line that's behind me. And I was going to do a top 10. And at this point, I'm a little over 40. So it might be a few videos, but I'm very excited about that. So that certainly got me up in the morning because I'm hoping for, more toys. I haven't even finished collecting the original series from the 90s, and Lord knows the new ones are going to be like $30 a piece, and we can't afford any of them. But
yeah, I was going to take an opportunity to make fun of you, but I got to say I'm pretty excited too because, my role in that show was more of a completely ignorant bystander.
And that's different how?
Yeah, that's a good point. However, since these will be new, I might actually be able to get in on the ground floor and maybe start my own little collection, or at least our hope is maybe we can get in and get reviewing those toys if we can get a hold of playmates. So we'll, but hey, you know what? Go ahead and check it out. It's right on our YouTube channel. You can check it out. It's Look at My Star Trek Toys. Here. And just like you don't need to be a fan of the practice, you don't have to be a fan of Star Trek. Hell, I'm not. And you can still enjoy the show. So there you go.
That's true. And you know what else you don't have to be a fan of to enjoy? It's a little segment we call...
We have tried for years to make this podcast a success.
We failed.
It's time to give the world what it wants. Meow, meow. Hot cat content. Meow, meow. Hot cat content. Meow, meow. Hot cat content.
So I'm sure all of us are raptly waiting for an update on the latest addition to our cat menagerie.
Well, it was tough to go for a minute because all of a sudden we got his right arm swelled up real big.
Oh no.
But he wasn't limping or anything, which is bizarre. So of course we couldn't call, this was in the evening, we couldn't call the vet. So I just went down the Google hole, and he had just gotten all his vaccines, and they had warned us that there's a small potential for some sort of a tumor. That's why they do the vaccines real low on the arm so they can amputate if necessary.
Oh, Jesus.
But don't even worry about it, they said. Well, the damn arm swelled up huge, and I'm like, well, damn it, now he's going to be amputated, and we're done. But he wasn't hurting, and he was still playing. We took him to the vet the next day, and they were like, well, let's monitor it for 3 days. We were going away this weekend, and so I came home last night and was just assured he'd be like laid up and unable to walk. But it went away, and there's no more bump, no more swelling. And on top of that, my other fear was that though he's been getting slightly along with my orange cat, I thought potentially orange cat, whose problem is that he sometimes plays too hard, and I thought he might hurt him. Well,
he's rambunctious.
I just walked in on them basically cleaning one another and sleeping together. So they've become bros very quickly.
Amazing. Well, can you post the picture you sent me? Because it's amazing.
I'll put it up right here. I just took it, so it's not loaded into the OBS. But
are we going to have another? I'll put it right here now, and then it never happens. And then Phoenix gives you shit.
No, this time it's going to be here. So yeah, it's been going great. He's doing good. Cece is still my first cat is still wary, but that's just her nature.
Yeah, well, is she getting a little bit more free time from being bothered by Dee Dee now?
Yes, I think it's a net win because she really just wants to be left alone and to love me and my wife. So that's I think what's going to take place. And but some cats, she would have been much happier as a solitary cat. Speaking of solitary cats,
yeah,
I think there might be one on the other end of this OBS.
Oh, well, there is. I don't have a lot of news other than he adores being brushed. That's his favorite thing in the whole wide world. If I hold up the brush, he'll come running across the room, other than, his wet food. And so this morning I gave him a pretty significant brush because he could use it, because he's a long-haired cat and there's a lot going on there. And it's been about 4 hours, and I think he got shot. He is on the chair behind me. Dead cat. Completely dead cat. Apparently that's his off switch. Just brush him for long enough, then he's done.
There actually, you know what? I'm going to take this cat bumper out.
Okay.
Let's schedule next week. So I've been watching some things I want to talk about, but I'm not prepared to do so right now. So let's schedule next week. We'll do some more TV. I'm sure there's a lot of things, and we'll be able to discuss, Keith, both of our favorite things next week, which is the Olympics. Assuming
it happens.
Things are getting dicey.
Like, scary story with the cat aside, get your damn vaccine. I can't imagine anybody listening to this would be dumb enough not to have a vaccine yet. But if you are, get your vaccine. What's wrong with you? You're going to kill yourselves.
The things are happening.
And ruin it for the rest of us. But speaking of ruining it for the rest of us, let's go into
Filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas.
I'm a little slow today, and I just tracked your segue. That was pretty funny. That was pretty good.
Well, so this week we have an interesting one because it's not really the practice related, and it's not even really us related. So if it's not about me, I'm not even sure why I'm talking about it. But we have an update in the life of our good friend and moderator Phoenix Cage, who writes this. Yes, my usual comments and criticisms were delayed. I hadn't even finished last podcast by the time this one was released. What are you doing? You don't have 3 hours of your week every week to listen to us immediately? I don't understand. He says, you see, I've been busy lately. As you know, I've been planning on moving across the state, but that has changed. Now I'm moving across the country. 2 months from today, I'll be driving to my new home 2,500 miles away. Given that I'm almost as old as you two, I'm sorry, I realize that I only got one more move left in me. So I'm going to get far away from the Midwest while I still can. Earlier this year, I was considering moving to Denmark. I even joined a Facebook group for American expats living in Denmark. After asking them a question, one said, "Oh, by the way, you should probably know that in Danish, cage means cake." I said, "Well, that's it. I'm out. I can't live the rest of my life as Phoenix Cake." Although, to be fair, cake is one of my favorite things in the whole wide world.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to be associated with cake?
I mean,
constantly.
like, who doesn't like cake? I think you might be the most.
A birthday bun cake for my sister-in-law, and it was just a delight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a vanilla birthday cake guy. But
this is what we've devolved
with
to.
sprinkles.
This is what our practice podcast has devolved to. I like cake.
I like cake and cats. Wow, we're really going out on a limb there. He says, "Who's gonna hot cake? Yes, who's gonna take me seriously?" So instead, I'm moving to where the weather is perfect because it's the opposite of the Midwest. The summers are dry and cool. The winters are mild and wet. It only snows once every 4 years, and it gets above 80 for only 2 weeks a year. I'm talking about Portland, Oregon. As a cyclist and a landscape photographer, it's perfect for me. And given that I've heard about the people there, I'll blend right in. It's true. These really are my only reasons for going. I don't know anyone there. I've never been in the Pacific Northwest. I just think I'll be happiest one day settling down in a cabin in its mosquito-free forests.
Portland's beautiful. It's rainy, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. And in case anybody's wondering, he did continue with, "Oh yeah, feel free to read all of that. A few episodes ago, you omitted the personal parts of my comment, which I actually think most people would have found the most interesting part, but there's no need. Being on here doesn't even come close to provoking my sense of privacy. There are probably more people who can see into my 13th story bedroom window than listen to this podcast." And boy, is that the truth. Phoenix
I won't even say zing.
With a zing.
I won't even say zing because it's just straight up facts.
Sometimes it's just the truth is the truth. And Mike, why don't you give us the truth on how people can write to us?
If you'd like to contact us, let us know where you're moving. Let us know where you're moving from. Let us know whether you like cake or not. Just write to us. We really would love to hear from you.
We're very lonely.
outofpracticepodcast@gmail.com. Check us out on the social medias, Out of Practice Podcast. Keith, I want to mention in this segment as well, I'm having a little bit of issues here because our ultimate goal was to extend our lease maybe a few months past October while we research how we can get ourselves back towards New York City.
Right.
Without moving into the city, because I will never do that. However, our timetable is questioned right now because in 20 years in New York City, the most my rent was ever raised on a year-end scale was maybe 3 to 5% maximum.
Okay.
Sometimes never raised. I'd go lease after lease without raising the rent at all. The most I ever had my rent raised on me was $105 in 20 years.
Sounds about right.
Got the lease renewal for this apartment, a 20% year over, and so they want to raise my rent $325.
Oh my God.
So I don't really know what I'm going to do. I'm going to just have to go and talk to them and say no, and see if I can negotiate it at.
That's insane.
I really don't understand. The waiting list can't be that. There can't be that many old people that want to move here. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see. So who knows? If you have a house for sale within 45 minutes to an hour of New York City, give me a call.
Or in my neighborhood, hello, I've been trying to convince them to move into my neighborhood for I don't know how long.
Yeah, I send Jen a lot of posts. She never responds. So I'm waiting to see.
All right, so I need to be talking to Jen then.
Jen is the...
I got to go straight to the CEO. I got to get past the receptionist, i.e. you, and go straight into the office and talk to the CEO. Okay, well, this I can do. Jen, I'm coming for you. All
right. What else? What are we doing here?
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to hop back into the time machine. Oh, it's that time every year. And every week, episode, whatever, we are going back to April 7th, the year 2002, to answer life's eternal question. Mike, what was going on
This day in the basement.
Well, Keith, last week we got to talk about CEO Jen's birthday many years ago. This year I want to do this year. Oh boy. This week
I did it to you. It's my fault.
Yep. This week I want to do something a little bit different. I got married on April 6th, 2014.
I remember. I was there. It was really
Yes.
good Indian food.
So I'm thinking back to April 6th, 7th of 2002. So you're talking, what is that?
19 years ago.
19 years to the day. And I was in a pretty crappy relationship, trapped right up inside of it and wondering how to get out of it. Thinking, oh man, maybe I'd be better off single. So many years ago, I did a bad Photoshop of New York City Dreamin'. And so here's my new New York City Dreamin' Mike Gets Married edition. That was me exactly in 2002 on the right, and then on the left is me in 2014 on the same day. I didn't know, but good things were in store. The "it gets better" phrase actually applied in this freaking department.
Yes, it did. I mean, it only took 19 years.
That's true.
It was only literally half of your lifetime.
Yeah, but we got there. We got there.
That's the important part. That really is the important part. Yeah, that's really sweet. See, Jen, wouldn't you want to move to a house in New Jersey with that guy? I mean, he's so sweet. He's got a lot of cats.
That's loose. That was a loose attempt. But Keith, while I was taking a pee before the podcast, I heard somebody saying "brava, bravo, brava." Tell me what that's all about.
Well, okay. So lots of things were happening. It's for this time in my life was crazy because it was the last 2 months of my collegiate career. That included an opera performances. It included my senior recital, which is coming up, so on and so forth. So a couple of things going on. One is the production of La Boheme that I mentioned before took place this weekend, which went very well. I was only in the ensemble because I did not get the part I auditioned for because I shouldn't have gotten it.
No small parts.
And I couldn't find a clip from that production, but I do have a clip of one of my classmates who I attended all of my classes with in a subsequent production of La Boheme. I can only just say that we both auditioned. Neither one of us got the role, but this is how she turned out. So that is my old friend Nicole Cabell. And the fact that we weren't cast in this production is just about the only thing we have in common because she turned out to be a big ol' star. She sounds phenomenal. I was live too. So that's what's going on there. Also, I was preparing for my senior recital, and I was searching for a string quartet to play on my recital because I was doing Vaughan Williams' On Wenlock Edge, which is for tenor and string quartet, sort of a song cycle. And so I was emailing around like, anybody want to play string quartet on my senior recital? So that was happening. And the third thing that happened was I got an offer from the opera director at school to do a summer at Ohio Light Opera. Being a sort of featured ensemble in their whole summer of stuff, which I turned down. Strangely. But as I went through all the emails, like I can sort of see where my thinking was. I was already, I won't really tell the story till I get to my senior recital, but I was already realizing that perhaps I was ready to take a swerve, to take a different lane in my life. And that was related to why I turned down a really good summer gig performing, which I'd probably take today, frankly. But yeah, so that was all the things that are happening. Next week, I'm going to tee it up. Next week, I have one of the most uncomfortable and humiliating experiences of my life.
Ooh,
which I will tell you about. That will be fun, right? But in the meantime, let us zoom further out beyond our own narcissistic tendencies into the whole wide world of April 7th, the year 2000.
It's time for the Out of Practice Podcast's This Day in the World. The greatest hits, the biggest movies, headlines from Vermont, essential sports updates, and for some inexplicable reason, the weather from 20 years ago. Now back to Keith and Mike.
Well, folks, would you believe that Ain't It Funny? Funny is still taking over number one. This is another cover here. There on your screen. The top movie was
great.
The top movie was Panic Room, which took in $18 million in its second week at number one. The Burlington Free Press talked about battles raging in the West Bank. Glad we solved that. Oh, you put Panic Room on the screen. Look at you. Damn, you're so professional.
I try.
Nothing looks more professional than this screen right now.
Streamlined.
Streamlined.
Oh, this girl is really going for it.
Oh, you know what else is going for it? Everybody's favorite segment.
It's time for sports.
The Boston Bruins beat the Sabres 8-5 in a wild game at the Fleet Center. Glenn Murray and Mike Knuble each scored 2 goals, and they also had goals from Ralston, Stumple, Samsonov, and current general manager Don Sweeney. The Flyers beat the Panthers 6-2 in the final regular season for both teams. They would soon both be starting the playoffs next week, with the Bruins facing the Devils and the Flyers facing off against the Leafs.
Ooh, got it all in, buddy.
Exciting time in hockey.
Great time to be alive. Great time to be alive.
Great time to be alive. I did not experience it as great at the time. I was very stressed out. Not surprisingly. All right. You know what?
I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. And I'm not going to take this anymore.
It's time to talk about the damn episode.
Oh, boy, we are talking about The Practice Season 6, Episode 17, Fireproof. That sounds exciting. It was written by Jonathan Shapiro, who last wrote on Man and Superman, which was also exciting, and directed by Andy Wolk, who last directed Dangerous Liaisons. And that leaves us, really, with only one thing to do before we get to the episode, and that is...
What is that supposed to mean?
What's your problem?
Is this what happens to women when you insert your penis?
What?
I'll do rhythm, you do lead.
What does Mike think's gonna happen?
You know, what if he would have drank the curdled milk? Then what would have happened?
Well, Jimmy, it's interesting you should ask because I'm coming at you today. We're
snap.
quickly coming to the end of the season. We need some sparks to begin flying. And so this week, Keith, what I think is going to happen is we have a fire that decimates the firm's office.
Ooh.
And while we are looking for suspects, Bobby and Eugene specifically, turn their eye towards Jimmy as they are afraid that potentially a gambling debt that he said he was over forced him to burn down the office for the insurance recoup.
Wow. Well, that, let me tell you, that's hot. But is it sexy?
Jimmy then is so smoke inhalated that he has to run around in his skivvies.
Wait, how does inhaling smoke mean you have to take your clothes off? How does the skivvies become part of smoke inhalation?
I'm doing it on the fly, man. What do you want from me?
Well, that is somebody's version of sexy. That is a choking Jimmy taking his clothes off for no reason instead of drinking some water or getting medical attention. Well, that sounds like a perfect segue into the episode. So now it's time. If you would like to listen to us, listen to the episode, hop over to your podcasting service of choice, or if you're already on podcast, just stay right where you are. And we will see you back on the YouTubes for the oopsies.
And we are back, baby.
We are back. We have just watched Fireproof. Boy, lot going on in this episode, and I wish there was something that could possibly help me remember what it is. Perhaps a segment we call
2, 3, 4. Mike has 30 seconds to remember what just happened on the show. Segment.
Hey, baby, we're all on fire. Oh, I'm on fire. And so's Breaking Bad's warehouse. Jimmy, whose dad used to work there, is defending him. He goes through the ringer. At one point, he says, I don't want you to defend me because you suck, Jimmy the bozo. I want Bobby. But then in the end, it's all good. Jimmy wins the case. Oh, meanwhile, Lucy almost gets engaged to some psychopath who's obsessive, and he buys her a ring with fraudulent money.
Yeah, okay. That was much of it. Let's fill in. Let's fill in the gaps in a segment we like to call
Client in the hot seat. Lucy's fiance is nuts. Bad DA gets burnt.
Ooh, you were able to work two fire-related things into it.
Yeah, man.
I would say perhaps you're on fuego.
En fuego?
En fuego, on fuego, in fuego. And we're all hoping that Lucy was not in fuego Legrante with a teeny bopper. So.
Well, as long as she did it behind closed curtains, just like we're going behind the curtain for a segment we call... Ladies and gentlemen, the Out of Practice podcast, in unofficial, unsolicited, unfactual association with David E. Kelly Productions, proudly present...
Oopsie.
The Oopsies! Celebrating excellence in acting good, lawyering good, guesting good, and being Tom Brady. Not to mention, this is where we rate the episode and stuff. Now, here are your hosts, Keith and Mike.
What the hell are the oopsies?
I
don't think it was the first one. It's that you did it like 6 times.
It sounds healthy.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's what they taught us. So,
yeah.
Whew. All right, we have an MVL to hand out.
We do. And I think at the end of the day, this week, it goes to Jimmy Berluti. He took the case to help his father's old boss. He learned a little bit of something about his dad and about the way shit works. He got ridiculed by the client and yet still pursued, as Jimmy has proven to do many times. He lets go of those personal matters and still does his due diligence, does his hardest work, and he got an acquittal for someone who does appear was innocent after all. So I'm not going to say good triumphed over evil, because the nuance is what this episode is somewhat about, but Jimmy did do his work and is the MVL.
Yeah, no, I think you're entirely right. I think Bobby did a good job, but this was really Jimmy's case. Jimmy sort of put this on his shoulders, and with a irascible client of mediocre morals, but still got it done. And yeah. Good job, Jimmy. I mean, it just really, watching Jimmy go through this, like, you remember Jimmy the Grunt? And, like, the Jimmy you'd never won a case. And this guy's, like, confident. He's like, I got this. Boom, bang, bang. No problem. Good job, Jimmy. Next up, everybody stretch.
Already famous cause you've been on TV, getting a paycheck, or the first entry on your IMDb. Way to go, but you're the best guest actor.
Pollos Hermanos.
Best guest actor.
Breaking Bad.
Best guest actor on the episode.
I'm going to let you spout why he's the winner, Keith, but it's definitely Breaking Bad. Go for it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely Mark Margolis, and he's there's a lot to say about him as an actor. There's a lot of sort of storytelling going on in his face. He has he has a very expressive mouth, which you don't usually see a lot. It's usually in the eyes, but he usually does sort of dead eyes, but does a lot of his acting with his lips and his teeth, interestingly. But yeah, I mean, he's so compelling to watch and so ambiguous in a lot of ways that he's frequently angry and affronted, but you don't know whether or not you can trust that. And I think it's a very interesting characteristic that he has as a performer. But yeah, I mean, I thought he was great. I mean, I think there's an interesting question to be made about what to do with Matt Zuckery's performance, who was Lucy's boyfriend, because it was so odd. And I think that was part of it. I thought it was good. I thought there's a lot of storytelling in his performance there that wasn't said out loud, but I'll talk about that later in the oopsies. So yeah, it's Mark Margolis for sure.
I will mention also that it was an interesting flippy-do the writers did for this episode, and Margolis did excellent with it, in that usually we see someone playing against type, and we laud performances like that, right? The gangster who doesn't act like the gangster to kind of spoof everybody. Here, he gave us a very mafioso performance, yet playing against the stereotype that he must have done this for the mob to get the money. They used that to keep us slightly on edge, even though it was never really in doubt whether he was guilty or not. I don't think that was the point. I just thought it was an interesting flip of the trope. And since we so often give them shit for playing into the trope, when they do something more interesting, I think it's worth noting.
Yeah, for sure. So congratulations, Mark Margolis, for winning your Best Guest Actor. Okay, well, here we go. It's time for...
You killed your podiatrist or blew the case, but you let a single tear run down your face. You're the best actor on the show.
Shout out to Marla Sokolov. I thought that what a bizarre set of scenes. I'm sure she read her scenes and was like, "Where's the middle part?" Because in the beginning she's sort of thrown off by this guy, and then by the end she's like with him, but is breaking up with him, even though it was weird. We'll talk about it. Talk about uneven, and then just like trying to make it work by writing an off-screen, off-the-page middle section that doesn't really match the character or the stakes or anything. I tried to defend it, but the truth of the matter is, we'll talk about it later, it's just dumb. Yeah. Shout out there. Shout out to 3 incredible actresses in Cameron Manheim, Lisa Gay Hamilton, and Kelly Williams, who were asked to...
Gave a wonderful performance of Pirates of Penzance.
Yeah, it's just an absolute asinine thing. And then all of a sudden are like trying to defend a kid from like 14,000 concurrent, whatever
7,000 years.
Just bizarre. Just bizarre and uneven and stupid. Shout out to Steve Harris, who is on vacation this week.
But he's getting his kitchen remodeled. I bet it's beautiful.
You know, we talk about it often. You know, remember Jimmy the Grunt? Remember Michael Badalucco filling that character in? And all these episodes later, crushing another monologue. But more than that, all of the pathos and discovery in that last monologue about his father wasn't out of the blue. Might have felt that way in the writing, but all of that was supported by his performance throughout the episode. It really is interesting because if we were to watch that again, and Keith, you have, so I'll let you comment on it. They don't really talk about his they don't hammer his discovery of his dad and what he meant to him throughout the episode. That wasn't even kind of the point. We got a couple of the beats in those little like Law and Order moments early, but his performance when he's told that he wants Bobby to do the cross-examination instead of Jimmy, there's a subtle performance there from Jimmy that tells a story. He's always telling a story. He's always telling a story, whether he's speaking or not. And so I think, once again, Michael Badalucco flexes, without being showy, just how excellent he is and why he deserved that Emmy.
Yeah, no, for sure. And sort of, as we've talked about before, for men, the father-son thing just really cuts right to for many men, it cuts right to your heart. And it's a very interesting performance for Michael, and it's also filling in a bit of the gap.
Keep talking, the
cat's
killing the fish.
Oh, cool. It's a bit of filling in the gap of Jimmy's backstory. Because we've met Jimmy's mother. We know that Jimmy's father is gone, but we also know that Jimmy comes from a very sort of blue-collar background. And it very much informs the character of Jimmy where Jimmy's father worked. So Jimmy's father worked in a warehouse. He was a blue-collar guy. And so Jimmy, when he enters the series, especially with the Jimmy the Grunt stuff, but also he's always had the sort of like Boston Catholic blue-collar background that has informed his character. And now we learn a little bit more about Jimmy's father and where Jimmy's sense of ethics comes from. And that sort of very old school, the boss is some sort of a important person within a family's life back in the day when people had bosses their whole lives as opposed to changing careers every 3 years. So, So anyway, Michael crushed it. Congratulations on your Best Actor Oopsie Award. Coming up next, our good friend, Tom Brady.
The Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady.
This week's award for the Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady goes to IT guy Tom Brady.
IT guy Tom Brady. Inappropriate IT guy Tom Brady.
Love it.
Congratulations on your Oopsie Award. Which brings us almost to the end of what we have to do, but it's probably the most important part.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to announce how many spare tires this episode gets.
Yeah, it felt very uneven in that the A case was pretty cut and dry. In fact, if you removed the legacy sort of arc of the questionable DA and Helen's kind of struggle with that situation, which I thought we sort of put to bed last week, but I guess it's just ongoing. It didn't have a lot of teeth to it. It didn't have a lot of bite. It wasn't particularly that interesting. I guess in the end we pulled in an emotional journey for Jimmy as well, but it's not bad. In fact, I thought I like a pretty cut and dry case. I thought the arsonist was so over the top that it was hard to believe it. Unless they had done some sort of flippy-do, there was at no point were you at risk for believing him, right? That he was in on it, that he wasn't in on it. The B case, while I love a Lucy storyline, I love that character. I found it to be completely, especially not only not knowing the way it ended, I found it to be completely sort of in right field, but it was tonally it didn't make any sense because it started as a comedic beat, even though Lucy was playing it as like almost they were where Lucy was and where the three other actresses were two different shows. They were in different plays. Yeah. And where it ends is in a different play, and then the bit they wrote in the middle doesn't match Lucy's character at all. It's clear she's trying to let him down gently, and even if they were just having study dates, right? Like you can't. None of it's justified. Lucy would never have. That's not Lucy's character. She never would. I know you and I had like kind of a pretend argument about it in the middle, but the truth of the matter is that it's moot. Like in my brain, the lore that never happened. This whole beat with Lucy never happened because it doesn't make any sense. It's completely in left field, right field. Choose your baseball analogy. So I'm just kind of, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it wasn't even interesting, to be honest. I don't even think it serves anything. It's you could completely cut it. Like, where did any character move forward because of that plot beat? No. Now, in the other case, we got, though maybe not the most exciting, we got to see some incredible acting, a great guest star, and an emotional journey for Jimmy, and we moved the narrative of the character a little bit further. So I give it points, though I found it to be not particularly suspenseful, but maybe that's not what they were going for. So definitely not a bad episode. I do feel like we leaned a little bit on last week. It felt like they tried to tack on a continuation. Once again, it's just... I feel like we're grasping for straws a little bit still. We talked about it last week. It was a criticism. I feel like we're still in that. I'm hoping that now we're going to be on 18. We've only got, 5 episodes left this season?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm hoping that there's only 1 or 2 more sort of fillers we're going to have to get through before we get some sort of like maybe continual end of season arc. But ultimately, I'm going to give it 7.21 spare tires. Not bad, not great. Sort of middling. Okay.
Well, I'll work backwards. I'll start with Lucy's story and then talk about the other story. You said that you love that character, and I do too, but this was out of character for that character that we love. It doesn't make any sense. You mentioned that they were on study dates. No, they weren't. What are they studying? Lucy's like a person with a job, and he's like, is he helping him with his math homework? No. Like it's very odd.
Around.
They're fooling around. Like that's what's happening, and that's entirely out of character and inappropriate and doesn't make any sense. Especially with Lucy as a rape counselor, she works for a law firm. She knows that what she's doing.
So
is
all
wrong.
of that stuff took place 6 weeks prior to that first scene.
To us meeting them, which means all of you're talking about how Lucy's having in a different scene with the rest of them. Lucy's lying. in those scenes, she's trying to sell the rest of the firm on like, oh, he's this weird kid I never see, and like I keep trying to shut him down, and he's whatever. No, she's not. According to this, they're hanging out for 6 weeks. So that doesn't make any sense either. And beyond that, on top of that, this guy as played, as on screen, he's crazy. He's not just 17. He's a nutcase. Like he's completely out of the performance is just like he's completely nuts. I don't care what age you are, somebody behaving like that, Lucy of all people would be like, give me 500 feet because that guy's crazy. And it doesn't, it's just weird. It's weird. I don't know why it's there. I don't like it, and
well, Keith, you can join my team of just writing it off. I'm just erasing it.
I'm just going to make it non-canon.
Happened. Yeah.
Well, the show probably will. And also escalating it into like the feds are in 7,000 years in prison. We didn't need that. It was already messy enough already. It's like the writers didn't think the stakes were high enough in that situation. Yeah, but it definitely was. Anyway, so yeah,
it's hold on. It's a more interesting beat if it doesn't go the legal route and Lucy confides in Eleanor, someone that if this has gone too far, it turns out I kind of spurred this on. And then there's sort of we get to have them as human beings working through an issue.
Or have Lucy realize he's underage and think, oh my God, what have I done? Work through the consequences of a mistake like that. And, the legal consequences, the emotional consequences, how it ties to stuff that she's gone through. Like, that's an interesting journey for that character to go on. But no, it's a comedic beat or tossed off or nonsense. All right, so the other case, I won't get too far into it. Obviously, I wish that Jimmy's emotional journey had been tied to it right from the very beginning. Certainly, it was a little bit. There was more to milk out of that to justify that monologue at the end. Tying it to Jimmy's dad. I don't know. There's just more there to be put together. The other thought that I had, that the entire episode begins on a premise that makes no sense. Okay, so it starts off with a betrayal because Firebug and Margolis were co-defendants for some reason, which means that Bobby and Jimmy and this other lawyer had decided it was in their best interest to try these two people together. It makes no sense. Why in God's name would our heroes or Margolis want anything to do with being a co-defendant with that lunatic? So, and we just sort of glossed over that, but like, there's no way in hell
it's a really good point.
they would ever want to be co-defendants with that lunatic. I mean, it was so obvious. And there's also nothing to be, they weren't working together. There was nothing to tie them together. Working as a co-defendant ties them together. And the whole case is their connection. It starts off on a false premise. It makes no sense. Now, I'm not just going to tear apart this episode because I think it is partially redeemed by one line. And that is at the end of Jimmy's monologue, where he really tears into him for his shitty ethics, Margolis's shitty ethics, and tax evasion and dumping toxic waste and all this kind of stuff and the hypocrisy of it all. And his response was, I'm a businessman. And I think that is where the episode actually had something to say. That the ethics of a business are separate from the ethics of an individual. And, and sorry, Mitt, companies aren't people, and because they have very different objectives. They have very different sets of ethics, very different goals. And I thought that was an interesting thing to tack on to the end of this episode and delivered well in the best scene of the episode. So I think that made it a little bit more interesting to me. Otherwise, I'd be like, what on earth is this episode trying to say? So for that reason, it gets an extra half a point that I wasn't going to give it. So I'm going to give it 6.82.
Okay,
So,
we're relatively in line.
Relatively, I think you liked it more than I did. But
Yeah.
But nonetheless, that's what you get, episode. It's time to hit our Easter egg. What do you think it is?
I got nothing. I got nothing. Is that Billy Bush? Who is it?
Guys, that is Kurt Russell and one of the lesser Baldwins in Backdraft, which this episode was a shameless ripoff of.
Okay, I like it. I'll take it.
The great movie Backdraft that I forced
I'm not
Jillian
sure
to
I've
watch
ever
lately.
seen it. I'm not sure I've ever watched Backdraft.
Oh wow, it's
Bad?
No, it's not. It's very entertaining. It's incredibly 90s. It is like peak 90s action dude movie. Yeah, I watched it again with Jillian and she was like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "The 90s." So if you would enjoy the 90s, and hopefully you do because you're listening to this podcast kind of about the 90s, you can tell us all about your love. And you can email us at outofpracticepodcast@gmail.com or on Facebook and Instagram at outofpracticepodcast. While you're doing it, be judgy. Please judge us. We desperately want you to judge us on the Apple Podcast review system. You can join the jury or any other system you want. You know who has judged us, and perhaps unfairly well, is our founding sponsors, including Jorge Navoa, Cloud Lover 69, Leanne Wrights, Jennifer Masanova, and Kari Kuhn.
Did you know that you can join them? And you can do so by leaving us a one-time donation or a monthly contribution by clicking the links in the show notes. Believe it or not, your financial support goes a long way. Or at least it goes some sort of a way. You can also help us out by letting people know that the show isn't just for those who love the practice. Anybody can get something out of it. Or, hell, just tell them to watch the Star Trek podcast, which is happening and going well. Do me another favor. Send laser sounds to 5 friends, who then will send laser sounds to 5 more friends, who then will finally end up putting you in jail for 17,000 years.
Laser Pyramid.
Is it happening? It's not happening.
It's not happening. There it is.